Hi, I'm Kassy, and this is the Spark Connect, a podcast about what brings us to life: connection, creativity, courage, and the moments that spark real change. I'll be your host, bringing my experience as a speaker, consultant, and lifelong believer in showing up as your full self. In this series, Arts and Facilitation, you'll hear from inspiring voices, facilitators, trainers, speakers, and everyday humans who are also artists, lighting up the world in their own unique, creative ways. This is your space to reflect, reset, and reignite, because the spark is already in you. Let's light it up. You're about to meet Heather Blevins, a self-declared insurance rebel who's on a mission to prove that training about subrogation and risk management can actually be entertaining. Heather brings her theater background straight into the world of insurance, turning policies and procedures into moments of performance, connection, and laughter. She believes that vulnerability builds trust, creativity sparks understanding, and emotional intelligence keeps learning human, even when the topic is anything but glamorous. We talk about how she uses humor and empathy to make complex ideas relatable, and how the industry desperately needs more imaginative minds as a wave of experts near retirement. As Heather says, subrogation is a fun insurance concept. Yeah, she said fun and insurance in the same sentence. So tune in to see how this insurance rebel is rewriting the rules of learning, one claim, one class, and one curtain call at a time. Hi, Heather.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you here, and I am just thrilled that we made the time. You and I have only met each other in this last year, and I'm just so excited to get to know you more and to learn more about what you do, you rebel. So without further ado, please tell us more about you and what you do, and also your artistry. What is your brand of artistry, if you will?
Absolutely. Well, I am a self-declared insurance rebel. But my mother would say that I came out of the womb as a rebel in life. I was fighting against a lot of health issues when I was born. And my mom said that rebellious spirit just showed my will to fight in life and to fight against the norm. I would say that has led me through so many challenges in my life, and that ability to be able to look at things from a different perspective. And my mother, very early on in life, if you want to say how I bring artistry into the world of things that I do today, my mother from very early on in life realized that creative spark in me. And, I grew up in rural America, middle class poor, and my mom wanted me to be able to express that creative spark, but also she wanted to keep that fire in me that was in my belly from the moment that I was born. And so immediately in life, she put me into dance and theater and music because she was like, you have talent, you have capabilities. Because I was always a little actress and putting on things for everyone from early stages in life. And I carried that into everything that I did. I spent tons of time in theater growing up as a kid. I spent tons of time in actually like a semi-professional ballet group. And so my Russian ballet instructor said, you're never going to be tall enough to be a dancer, even in the corps. And so you probably should give this up right now. So I focused all my attention on theater and speech and acting and music as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love to sing, and I have utilized that throughout my entire training career, I would say, and as a facilitator and a corporate trainer for many years in the insurance world. Those two things didn't mesh very well. You think about it.
No, I know. And in fact, don't we isn't there sort of like ongoing, okay, if you want to work in a boring world, you work in, well, there's compliance, but then does insurance get the high rating of boring too? which is completely wrong, since I've met you and the wonderful people in the organization where you and I came together, right? It's not true at all. It's very exciting, very interesting. And you focus on, in particular, risk management, and you talk about bringing the fun to risk management, what's not fun about risk? I mean, why are people saying that's boring?
Yeah, absolutely. Like risk is involved in every single facet of our lives.
Yeah.
And I think you can bring some color and theater and art into the whole explanation of what risk is. Otherwise, it's going to sound like a book on tape. Risk management is the study of.
I'm so curious though, like how is it received? Because it's not, I can't imagine that when you entered into the world of insurance, you were like, hey, theater kid here, really want to do training with insurance and specifically this. All my theater skills are just going to be great for your world. Can't wait for you to hire me. I'm sure it's not how it went.
It was a bit shocking at first, mainly because I wanted to come up with some really creative ways to be able to bring about technical concepts to an audience that wasn't really prepared for that. You know, having worked in a very conservative, very traditional insurance company, people would look at the classes that I would bring forward and go, so you're going to talk about subrogation, and that's a fun insurance concept, by the way. You're going to talk about subrogation, but you're going to like put people inside of a submarine mentally to do that.
So wait, what is subrogation though? We do need to know.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about the industry because you didn't like, grow up. I'm a theater kid. Did you go to university and do theater kid stuff too?
No, I didn't actually. Studied like organizational leadership and business.
Okay.
And that was because the world told me I needed to have a degree in something that was going to be, valuable, right?
For sure. That's what happens. That's we use art and creativity for children, and then we slowly, as we grow, start removing that and saving it for the weekends and the evenings.
Yeah. And that was that was kind of a shock for me at first, but when people saw what I could teach about and how relatable the concepts were to like everyday life, because everyone has a little bit of piece of artistry, creativity, creative thinking in them. And it makes difficult concepts stick with people and helps them to go, oh, well, Heather was talking about subrogation being some kind of failure in the submarine that we were inside of and somebody being responsible for that. And it clicked and people they could see, they could hear that and they could understand it. They could grab a hold of it and go, now I know what I'm supposed to do in this circumstance because she made it fun, interesting, creative for me to learn about this incredibly dry and boring topic.
Subrogation is dry and boring.
It can be.
What is it? We got to go back to them.
Yeah. Okay. Subrogation is the concept that someone else is responsible for a loss that happens. Let's say I'll make it very simple. Your dishwasher breaks in your house. That product failed in some way, right? Maybe because of a manufacturer defect, maybe because of a faulty installation. A contractor puts it in wrong or attaches a hose wrong to it. And the insurance companies look at subrogation as an opportunity to be able to make sure that the right person is paying for a loss. Yes, your insurance is there to take care of your damage from that claim that you present, but they also want to make sure that the cost of your deductible money, which is that money that comes out of your pocket anytime you have an insurance claim, comes back to you in the process of investigating what happened in that claim. So they'll go to the manufacturer or they'll go to that contractor and say, hey, we have all this evidence that says you're responsible. You need to pay us back so that we can pay our customer back for their cost out of pocket. And it's also, I mean, again, it's like a return of money in a situation where someone else is responsible, and insurance is going to step in and fill the gap for the moment until that responsible person is presented with the evidence that says, yeah, they're responsible, they're going to pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting. Is that the area in your business that you focus? Is subrogation your primary area?
No, it's just one of the concepts that I've actually taught about in the past, and the fact that I had taught that class and put people in a submarine mentally was actually decorated the room with like a bunch of stuff that looked like a submarine. It was.
Tell me where the submarine, like why the submarine idea? Where did this come from? Were you working with people who were Navy?
Subrogation, the word play.
The word itself, just sub and sub. Okay.
the wordplay because I'm also a writer and a big fan of words, and I feel like words create sticky concepts for people as well. And so anytime that we can relate something fun and interesting to technical concepts, people will grab a hold of it and remember the words.
They will. The associations help us, especially with even more technical concepts. Absolutely, because we don't have anything to relate it to.
Mhm.
It's amazing. But let's just go back in time for a second. So you go to university, you get a degree, a more corporate style degree. Do you head straight into insurance though? Like have you always worked in insurance? Yeah, how did you end up where you are? And of course you're bringing the theater and the flair everywhere you go.
Well, prior to insurance, I actually ran a preschool. So I had a school that I ran that was we had almost 400 children in the school, ages 6 weeks to 12 years old, because we did before and after school programs. So I lived in the world of early childhood education prior to coming into insurance. So education has always been at the heart of most everything that I've done in my life and career. I went through another major health crisis in my life and had to stop working for a while. And when I was trying to enter back into the workforce again, it was insurance that kind of came knocking because a friend of mine said, "Hey, this great company that I work for is hiring a whole bunch of people in your backyard. I think you can do this job." I was like, I don't know anything about insurance other than I pay for it and it's kind of complicated. And it's, these contracts that are written by lawyers. And I didn't know what I was doing whenever I stepped into the insurance world. So, but I landed the job and I stepped into a world that I didn't really know or understand, but really became something that I was able to throw like every bit of my passion behind
Mhm.
because insurance found me at the time that I needed to be found. And people in insurance a lot of times will say, yeah, I fell into insurance." Almost like it was like not a choice or I didn't really want this job.
That's interesting. A lot of people come to training. No, I don't know very many people who go to university or do any kind of research and study to end up saying, I'm going to end up in learning and development. I'm going to be a trainer. They fall into it as well, usually because they knew it best or they weren't afraid to talk to people.
Yeah. In insurance, there's a perception problem. The insurance industry is obviously viewed in a pretty negative light in a lot of different spaces and places, especially as a job for people to do. And when I came into the industry, I realized that number one, it was an industry that was always going to keep me learning and growing as a
Mm.
professional. It was an industry that was going to allow me to take all of that education knowledge and training knowledge and the capability to be able to be creative in how you present technical material to people and just share it with the world. But I will say, when I stepped into the insurance industry, because it was after a really terrifying point in my life, I was a little worried about like the rebellious nature of Heather coming out in front of a group of people who were straight-laced conservative people. And so I shelved the rebel for a while. I kind of stuck it on a shelf. And that didn't mean that like parts of that piece of me didn't come out and people could see that at times in who I was, but I was like, I have this really important job that I have to do now. And oh, by the way, I haven't worked in a while and I was, worried about, my livelihood and my ability to be able to support my family and all those things and kind of teetering on the edge of I wasn't really sure like that this health issue that I had was going to rear its ugly head again and I was going to have to deal with that in a new job environment. When I came into insurance, I found some people who were like, there's a part of you that I know that you're not really showing here right now. And they kind of coaxed that out of me. And they coaxed it out of me by giving me the opportunity to be able to get up in front of people and teach classes.
I see. Yeah, so let's talk about that then. So like that's the theater, that's the performer. And let's talk about when you say that you're known as the insurance rebel. So let's talk about your journey to insurance rebel and explain to me and us, our listeners, what do you mean when you say you're the rebel?
What I mean when I say that I'm the rebel is that I am constantly pushing against the things that are holding people back. from who they truly are, from being able to express themselves authentically in various environments. And also, the insurance rebel piece of this is I'm constantly pushing against the things and speaking about the things that are holding the insurance industry back from truly realizing greatness. And the people in insurance are often afraid to talk about their realness, I guess you could say. They have they've shelved it just like I did.
Why is this? Is there just this perception that it's insurance and we're buttoned up?
It's a perception that it's a coat and tie industry. That has vastly shifted in the past 10 years, mainly because of the generations that are coming into the workforce today and the fact that people are just more okay post COVID being their real selves. If we had lived in an environment, I would say without COVID, and I know that like everybody talks about COVID being a terrible thing. To me, yes, it was an awful thing that happened. A pandemic is never a good thing. But the things that came out of it that are really good is our ability to be able to connect with people in different ways and for people to just be uninhibited about what's going on in their world. I mean, like I noticed my dog like walked behind me here and
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It just brought
prior,
joy when we saw him walk by.
prior to all of COVID, people probably would have been a little terrified of, oh, my animal did this or they couldn't really be themselves. And especially trainers and those that live in the learning and development world felt a lot of times that they were often scripted and putting on a show and not really digging in and teaching from the heart. And unfortunately, in insurance, that's the way a lot of training has been delivered in the past.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
so I came in with this idea of we can teach insurance very, very differently than we do. We can teach it with fun and crazy and interesting concepts that stick with people. And there's so many other trailblazers out there that I know of that are doing the exact same thing today. And I can only hope to like pick up the dust of their footsteps most of the time. And that's kind of, I guess I could say, the story of how I became the insurance rebel. It was about curiosity. It was about pushing against the things, and it was about actually like activating who I really was as a person from literally birth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Are there any specific artistic or theatrical, let's call them tools,
Mhm.
that you're bringing in to your learning environments that you can think of right now? And I know I'm putting you on the spot with this one, but is there anything specific that comes to mind that you're like, I learned that for theater and I'm bringing it to class today? Does that happen?
Yeah. Um, I would definitely say the ability to be able to like pull together a really cool story at the beginning of your presentation that just like captivates an audience and draws them in. That's a theater skill. To be able to at least memorize enough of a story to tell it in a way that people are like, "Oh, I just have to hear more of what you're going to talk about next."
Yeah.
That is definitely a theater skill. And then the ability to be able to insert humor and levity and fun and silliness into how you present helps people to realize that you're not just a one-way presenter in environments. You are a human being who's trying to relate something interesting to them in a way that's going to make the concept stick with them and that they want to hear more about
Right.
that concept.
Yeah. Like that ability to play with the audience. I think actually it also comes from a place of vulnerability. And so I'm wondering about how do you navigate the vulnerability, which you've done with us today, sharing some of your how you got to where you are. It comes from some things you've experienced in your life. And so how are you navigating the vulnerability piece, both as an artist and as a facilitator in insurance?
The number one thing you can do is be real about yourself in front of other people and admit the things that have happened to you because I believe those challenges, those mistakes, those failings, those tripping over yourself moments, number one, they happen routinely in the theater world. Like you're going to make some pretty serious mistakes on the stage at times. Your voice is going to crack, or I don't know, your dress is going to pop open in the middle of a play. I hate to say that. That's actually happened.
Have you ever had that happen in a training?
No, I haven't had it happen in a training, but I have had moments where I sat on the edge of a table and the table collapsed under,
Oh gosh.
you know?
I know. I recently delivered a session to 300 people, and I wore this really cute belt. And the last minute, they hooked up my mic, and the belt and the mic weren't interacting properly, and it ended up popping the belt out like vertical from my body, and I didn't know. So the whole recording for the whole hour is this belt that's sticking out like perpendicular to my body. It should have been laying flat, but it's laying and people in the front row ended up coming up afterwards. I'm like, why didn't you tell me before? They were like, your belt's sticking straight out. It's like,
Oh my gosh, no.
it was one of these, they put the mic on me as soon as I had to go live, so there was no check. I'm actually angry about it, can you tell? But yeah, but the ability to go through that and still get, I didn't actually, in this particular case, I didn't know. I'm more like responding to afterwards and looking at it and going, okay, what in the world? Yeah. But the people in the audience, they were like, we didn't think we should come up and tell you because we didn't know how you would handle that, and I'm like, I would have hugged you, but I guess everyone's different. But yeah, things like that, being able to get through those moments and still gather your composure and proceed, because a lot of people, when they're new to training, they're like, how do I get through? Like, if I mess up, what am I supposed to do? Or what if I get a question that I cannot answer? And it's an interesting thing for me when I look back on my past, because the theater stuff, that's what you deal with right from the get-go. It's like Theater 101. You're going to forget the line, or your scene partner's going to forget the line, or the audience is or is not going to react as you expect. And then what are you going to do? And so we start from day one training for those things on how you're still going to manage and flow through. And so much of that is brought into the way that we teach, right? And how we have to get through those things. But it's not easy.
No, it's not. And of course, when you're hypercritical of yourself, you often go back just like you did with your belt hanging
Yeah.
out and go, oh, it's almost like your soul melts at that moment
Yes.
when you think this happened in front of this audience. But we have to take from those circumstances, and what I've learned to take from those circumstances, is that everyone else in that audience might have experienced a moment like that too. And they see you being vulnerable. If they see you being vulnerable about that, that will make them feel more comfortable in your environment and allow your audience to be more authentic with you as well. Because, realistically, I teach about a lot of concepts in a lot of different environments, and my concepts have shifted less from the technical of insurance because I don't live in the world of insurance anymore. I mean,
Okay.
I'm adjacent to insurance now in the job role that I have. But I talk about concepts now that are they're difficult to talk about.
Like what? Like what when you say like,
One of them being the reality that we have like a burnout crisis in the claims industry, and that people don't have coping skills to be able to manage the effects of vicarious trauma, which is a reality for claims adjusters today. Think about it as a claims adjuster is somebody that's going to come in and handle a traumatic event for people in their lives. And they they are exposed repeatedly, just like first responders, just like people, doctors, just like social workers, to people who are going through trauma in their life. Because a claim, the average claim where you have a windshield break on your car or something, that's day-to-day kind of life stuff. But people's largest asset of their life being destroyed in a
yeah,
loss situation, or their business being destroyed, or being subject to a catastrophic event in their life, like a tornado or a wildfire or a flood or something like that. Claims adjusters are forced into those circumstances working with people who are going through trauma. And so
okay,
there's a natural impact of that vicarious trauma on individuals and their lives. But I have to be able to teach that in a way that helps people to understand that it's not all just doom and gloom and really sad. There are actually healthy ways to cope with that. One of the ways that I teach people to cope with that is humor and levity and creativity and utilizing their capabilities to be able to just be human with other people and vulnerable with other people, and that it's okay to not be okay in certain circumstances, and admitting that doesn't make you a failure. Admitting that actually, like, unlocks your capability to be able to relate to people better.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Do you
so
think there's an element of what you're doing that is performance? Like, how do you think performance plays a role?
I have to know how to control my emotions when I'm talking about those concepts, because it's a subject I'm really passionate about, because I've watched people and I've experienced the effects of it myself.
Okay.
I have watched people who are literally in crisis at times in their life who work in the insurance industry. And I have seen the impacts of that. And I've seen the impacts, I felt those impacts in my own life when I worked in certain types of claims environments. And I have to know that performance piece of it is I can get really emotional about that topic. And I've had to use some of those theater arts training pieces of it to, like, quell that emotion in a way that people don't feel that I'm just up there ranting, or, I start crying about something.
Yeah. It's really important in performance. When like the sort of the classic, the audience does not want to have to take care of
No.
the performer, the trainer, the presenter. You're up there for a reason. You should be on the other side of it.
Mhm.
And so we want to be able to express vulnerability and to express emotion and to be able to call it forward and live in it, but we can't lose control of it because the audience doesn't need to be the one wrapping you up in a blanket,
No.
right? And so
No.
you have to, and so I have to draw on the theater. Like we talk a lot about this, what people are telling really heavy stories, loss, death, things that are really hard to talk about. But how do you do that? How do speakers get through those stories and still be able to talk? And that comes from theater and the processes around what you do for that and how you get through that. But it's so important that piece of it. And I don't know that I would know how to manage those types of stories without the influence of theater in my life and getting that kind of very specific coaching, which did not come from my corporate life at all.
No. No.
Yeah.
I pull myself back to those moments where somebody taught me in acting classes how to emote in different ways. And I've even gone through some of those exercises and used those when I've practiced what I'm going to talk about when I talk about these heavy topics.
Wow. Do
And
you remember what those are?
some of those would be, I mean, like, just the emotion exercises that you do where you teach yourself. You look at yourself in a mirror and or today you video record yourself. Back in the day, it was you're standing in front of somebody in an acting class and they, show me sadness, show me happiness, show me excited, and use your face and your emotions and your body language to be able to tell a story that way. And I've gone through the exercises of those emotions, and then I have practiced what I have been speaking about
Yes.
repeatedly.
It's so important to say it out loud. One of the most impactful coaching and training sessions that I had, telling the type of story where you could bawl your head off, was to just keep telling it while I'm bawling my head off. Rehearse it, rehearse it, rehearse it, rehearse it over and over again. Feel it, feel it, feel it. Get on the other side. Get on the other side. And then what starts to happen, I have this one particular story about a time when virtual presenting and training was transformed in my life forever as a result of one woman appearing on camera with tears in her eyes, thanking us from everything that was within her for what we had created and made available to her, because she would have no other access to anything that she needed without what we had done. And the story behind it and all of the details behind it are unnecessary for me to say, word for word. What's important to know, and the only reason I'm even able to get through it to this day, because I sat there and bawled my head off with her. And when it happened, is been rehearsing it, rewriting it, allowing myself to feel it, and then calling upon in the moment only the most important details that would allow for those receiving it to have space to, have those emotions. I don't have to have every single detail of what happened to get there. And the only way I've ever gotten that way is by blurting out all the details and trying to find my way to less in some ways.
I'm a big self-talker.
Yeah.
I always would tease my daughter because she inherited that from me when she was growing up. She would just hear her at the age of like 3 years old in there just talking to herself, and I was like, "She is my daughter, isn't she?" Because I have to talk through things with myself to be able to process through them, and that's how I deal with emotion, and that's how I deal with, trying to come up with how I'm gonna solve something or how I'm gonna deal with a problem or a challenge is I talk through them. I'm very grateful for the husband that can deal with me talking through things to be able to, and he just sits and listens and nods his head. But that piece of trying to relay, when you're trying to relay like incredibly heavy emotional concepts to people, but help them to understand like, I'm not just here to talk to you about the bad, I'm here to talk to you about the solution for what this is and providing like real resources for the solution for those types of issues. It does require practice. It requires being able to like steel yourself with those emotions that well up because you are passionate about the topic. You do feel a very much a personal connection to it. And I think that those that have lived in the theater world who have learned how to perform in those types of circumstances, you have an edge in the corporate world to be able to talk about things that are difficult without losing your ability, and also as you spoke about the audience comforting you through the
Yeah.
process,
Right.
right? Let me come hold your hand, Kassy,
Yeah.
because
There's
I
like a
feel
respect
bad right now.
for, yeah, like I think what we bring with people from the theater, we know there's a respect for the space, there's a respect for the experience, and I've earned the right to be here and I better step up and be in it. And I owe it to you as an audience member. Because, it's interesting to me. Have you noticed this too in corporate training environments? It has been my experience that a lot of people will push back on rehearsals and they'll push back on script. It's like sort of the age old conversation of I knew they were reading it, and it's like, yeah, you're not. You can't sound like you're reading it. But here's the thing: that doesn't mean we don't need a plan and we don't need a script. It's about rehearsal and learning it.
Mhm.
And I find it very interesting how there's that clash. And have you experienced that clash in the insurance industry as well, where there's a resistance to scripting and rehearsals? And it's better if I just speak from, I'll be more natural if I just wing it. And I'm
It
like, hmm.
I will tell you it's almost exactly the opposite, and that's mainly because insurance is really risk averse to everything.
Okay,
Every
interesting. That makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah, anything
Okay.
and everything that you talk about in insurance is eventually discoverable in litigation style circumstances. And so especially training materials, training, anything that's put out for training purposes, having been on the receiving end of way too many depositions and sitting in the hot seat in federal court multiple times in my insurance career, you realize how important the concepts of training are and the information that is relayed. So yes, so me coming in as somebody who's like, let's speak wild and creative with what we teach. People at first were like, whoa, wait a minute.
Hold up. Yeah.
Yeah, hold up. But then they realize, oh, well, that's the presentation of it, not the actual material itself. You're not really changing the concepts of the material. You're just bringing some flair to how it's actually presented in various environments. And again, like that reluctance was there in the beginning, but then people realized that people were actually learning and doing very well with it. And I was able to convince a lot of audiences that we can present this in a different way than we are today and not have people falling asleep in our class.
Gotcha. But you come from a world where people are very prepared, very rehearsed,
Yes.
and it is coming from being very risk averse for very, very real reasons. And so you're in a situation where you want to liven up the delivery of it. I see. That's very, very interesting and does make perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you want people to feel when they leave your class or after they've attended your class? What's important to you?
I want people to walk away from classes and presentations that I might be involved in feeling seen and heard when they're there. And I will say, like, how we got to know each other has re enlivened that in me because I saw you doing that in the environment that we built a relationship from. Because I've realized that many times when you're presenting and you're presenting in maybe a one-way environment, that people don't feel like they're seen or heard at all. And so I'm working very hard today, especially to bring myself back to the audiences that are there and then inviting them in to what I'm presenting as well. I think that call and challenge is so powerful for those that are in the training and learning and development community today, or those that are presenting today. Keynote speakers should never be people who just talk at an audience.
Yeah, it has changed, hasn't it? We've got to like bring them to feel and to feel as though they've also been seen and understood and moved in some way, right? The talking at those days they're done in so many settings and environments. Well, you, Heather, from the moment I met you, just bring light and joy. Ever since I met you and many other people within the insurance, in particular the site organization, sort of brokered our introduction, if you will. I've been talking about everyone. I'm like, guys, do you know the insurance trainers? They're the most amazing group of people that I have met in like the last couple of years. I'm telling you, where have they been all of our lives? Like, it's just been so much. I was recently at another conference after I was at the one with you where I ran into some insurance people and I'm like, do you all belong to site? And they're like, yes. And we're talking and it's just wonderful. And I see that in you. I don't see the buttoned up boring at all. I have a whole different view of insurance, and that has so much to do with you and meeting you and following you on the things that you're doing.
Maybe my rebelliousness is working.
It's working. 100% it's working. We are all trainers, and most of the people that are listening to this are people who teach other people things. So I was wondering if you had anything that you could teach us today that we could potentially bring into our next training or presentation that we plan to deliver. Anything that specifically from your artistry, from your world. And I know, we didn't talk about this, but you also, you mentioned just briefly in the beginning your interest in words. And I know you do some poetry and things of that nature as well, not only theater and performance and music. You're a woman of many talents, but is there anything that you could teach us that we might be able to bring into the next time we teach or plan to deliver a training session?
Yeah, well, I'll harken myself back to my poetry roots. I did a lot of teenage angst poetry for quite a bit of those formative years. But I actually have a small book of poetry that hasn't been published yet. And I would challenge everyone to look at haiku, all right, and have your audiences create a haiku of what they're going to like learn about and the concept that they're going to learn about in the classroom. And mainly because that's so simple and easy. Haiku's like the short little stanza poems and everything. And people can relate to that because it allows them to be able to express themselves in a creative way with some words, even about some really crazy technical concept that they might be learning about in your classroom environment. And then
It forces the process, doesn't it?
yeah, like
so just to get clear on haiku, traditional form of Japanese poetry, the specific structure is 3 lines with a 5-7-5 syllable pattern.
mhm.
So the instruction would be let's make a statement about what we've just learned, or you decide how you're going to do that. And it would be 3 lines, 5-7-5 syllables.
That's right.
Yeah. Have you done it? Have you done it?
I haven't actually done that, but since you brought up poetry, that came to my mind actually, like right away. And I want to utilize it. I may sneak this out in an event that I'm going to be at in October this year.
Yeah, you should do this. Because you remind me, I one time asked people to just talk about what they had learned, and I didn't give them this rule, but I remember one group one time, they came up to the front because the groups were coming up and being like, this is what we learned and what we've decided we're going to do with it. I did not give them the rules. I was just like, what are y'all going to do with what we did today? And they came up and talked about it. But this one group came up and said, we decided to make a haiku for ours. And I remember them doing it. And I went to this day that I had recorded it because I don't remember what they said, but I know that everybody was like, oh, stop. Y'all just won the what did we learn today moment. It was very good. And to your point, I think it's relatively simple. And especially if you put a couple people together, they're going to be able to do it. Yeah. I love that idea so much. Where can people connect with you, Heather, and find out more about the cool work that you're doing and the rebellious work that you're doing in the world of insurance?
Number one, LinkedIn. I'm very active in the LinkedIn environment, and I would say find me there, connect with me there, and set up some time. Like I do respond to messages on LinkedIn unless you're somebody that's trying to sell me something, and send me a message. Let's connect for coffee. Let's talk. I do follow through with those discussions, and because I enjoy connecting with people across a variety of communities. And that's the place that you can mostly find me right now.
Yeah.
Then also, if you're ever on the insurance conference circuit, I'm out there quite frequently.
And it is absolutely wonderful. So, on that note, you said insurance has a perception problem.
Yeah.
And from the conversations that we've had over the last year since I've met you, it sounds like it is an industry that is interested in inviting people to please join. And I know that there's a lot of people that are switching jobs and looking for new opportunities. And I'm just wondering if we want to take a moment to say, hey, come take a look at what we're doing over here. Would that be an accurate thing to say, Heather? And if so, where would they go look? Like, what if somebody listens to this and they're trainers and they never even thought about the work that you do? Where would they go to learn more and to find out and maybe to join the fold, if you will?
Yeah. Number one, Society of Insurance Trainers and Educators. We need you to come and join us and bring all the goodness that you're training in your insurance roles. But also, the Society of Insurance Trainers and Educators is not just open to those who are in the insurance industry, because the concepts are cross applicable. There's people who teach technical concepts in government roles and municipality roles and all kinds of different types of job roles out there where you're relaying difficult information to people that's really complex and hard to understand. Sight will give you a leg up in being able to deliver that in a way that people want to hear more about it and don't fall asleep in your class.
Yeah. And really just to look in the insurance industry, what roles and opportunities for learning and development professionals are available? Like just look that way, because I just have met the most wonderful people over the last year. And I want to encourage people to check it out because it's excellent. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for what's happening as the future unfolds.
And I will leave you with a fact and statistic that is going to shock most people. But 50% of the insurance industry is set to retire by 2028. So you tell me if they need some people to teach and train. And trust me, if you're a creative, you're an artist, you're somebody who has that in your soul, the insurance industry needs you to bring that skill set, because they're at a talent crisis right now, needing
Wow.
to fill the gap of those who are heading out into retirement land. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Where would people go if they wanted to work in the insurance industry? Are they looking for specific insurance companies?
It depends on what you want to do in insurance. A lot of times people think insurance is just selling insurance. There are so many different types of jobs. If you're tech savvy, if you have technology skill sets, if you're a software programmer, if you're a developer, if you're a learning and development specialist, if you're a talent specialist, insurance has so many different roles that you can plug yourself into, and you don't have to work for an insurance carrier. There are brand new startup companies that you can go work for. There are adjacent organizations like what I do today in insurance consulting work that support the insurance industry. Those are there's a lot of places, and I can tell you, if you just look on LinkedIn and you search insurance jobs, you will not be able to get through the list.
That's awesome. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put some of the things that you've mentioned in our show notes, like the link to site and obviously connecting with you. But let's just encourage people who are maybe seeking a new opportunity to check out the insurance industry. There's a lot of opportunity there. As you just heard, that is a staggering statistic. Thank you for being with us today, Heather. You are delightful as always. And thank you for making time. I know you're in a big move and all sorts of life changes happening. So even extra special that I was able to be with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kassy. And rebel out, everybody.
That's your spark. Now go light something up. And hey, if this episode lit you up, share it with a friend, a fellow facilitator, or someone who needs a little more connection in their day. Be sure to follow the Spark Konnect so you don't miss what's next. We've got more brilliant voices, bold ideas, and heart-forward conversations coming your way. Until then, stay curious, stay brave, and keep showing up.